Hello, these are instructions for operating the distillation column. Let's begin by turning the column on. It takes a while for the column to heat up, so you want to do this when you first arrive in lab. Startup begins by turning on the cooling water with this rotometer. It should be set at 3,000 mils per minute, which has a tendency to drift, so you want to check it periodically to make sure the flow rate is constant. If the water doesn't come on, there's a city water valve over by the refractive index instrument that needs to be opened. Once the cooling water is flowing, then we can turn on the heat source. The power to the heat is these 4 circuit breakers. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're surrounded in red because they are your emergency shut-off. There is a button at the top of the gray one, which when you hit, shuts down power quickly to the entire column. After flipping the circuit breakers, you then turn on whatever device you need to use: reflux valve, reboiler heater, or feed pump. Right now all we need is the reboiler heater, and I turn that on here with the red button and it lights up. So that turns the heater on, but we move to the computer to set the power level. The software for the distillation column is in the center of the screen, arm field. When it opens, you should see the IFD connected to COM5. If not, you need to contact the lab manager to reconnect the interface. And then you need to hit this icon here that says View Diagram. And when you hit that, you'll get a diagram of the distillation column where you can set your various parameters, such as power, reflux, and feed flow rate. So right now we're going to set the power. This is put in percent, and I'm going to heat up at 50%. If I go to back to the control panel, I see on the reboiler heater kilowatts for 50% of 0.9 kilowatts. So you put a percent in the software and you can read the kilowatts on the control panel. For startup, we are going to warm up and begin running at full reflux, which means you leave the reflux control off as well as the feed pump, and the only thing turned on is the reboiler heater. Here is the reboiler, and you should find it stocked with approximately 10 liters of 80% propanol, 20% methanol. This vessel to the right is your feed vessel, and the feed concentration is 50-50 methanol and propanol. The final step in startup is to make sure that all the valves are in the proper place. Once the heater inside the reboiler starts to heat up, vapor is going to rise in the column, and it will go then into this condenser, and the cooling water will condense it, and it falls into this immiscible fluid separator. So we're not using that in this experiment, so you want to make sure valve B10 is open so the liquid can drop through this chamber, and it'll drop down to here where it will flow into the reflux valve, the black valve back there. So you want to make sure this valve, which is where you sample your distillate, is closed, so the distillate cannot flow out till you're ready to sample it, and will flow instead to the reflux valve. You also want to make sure the valves to the barometer for measuring pressure are closed till you're ready to measure pressure. This is V6 down here, closed, and V7 up here, closed. And when you're ready to measure pressure, then you will open them. During startup, sometimes if I leave this valve to the bottom product vessel, it will siphon reboiler fluid into the bottom product vessel overnight. So I sometimes close this at night if I remember, so I don't have a siphoning going on. So you want to make sure this is pointing towards the bottom product vessel before you begin your experiment. The operator at this station will be running the computer, anything required off the computer, and then once you establish thermal equilibrium, you will start the reflux in the feed, and then you will measure the distillate rate and carry out a material balance to set your bottom rate. Then when thermal steady state is reached again, you will start sampling the tops and bottoms and turn those samples over to the operator reading the refractive index. That station is over on the left of the column. This is the station where the second operator will sit 6 feet away, reading the index of refraction of the samples. This job is kind of easy but a little tedious, and you have to decide when you're at molar equilibrium. Because the operator on the column is so busy with material balances and sampling, this operator, in addition to reading the index of refraction, will make any feed that might be needed in the course of the lab. I will have the feed tank stocked with an initial stock of 50-50 feed, but if you run through that, then you'll need to make a second or third batch.